Up next is House File 1109. Vice Chair Murphy, do you move House File 1109 to get it before the committee with a recommendation that it is laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus bonding bill?
Mr. Chair, I move House File 1109 to come before the committee with a recommendation that it be held over for possible inclusion in the omnibus bill.
Thank you, Representative Murphy. With that motion, you can begin with your presentation.
House File 1109 is the high speed, well, not real high speed, but a speedy passenger rail service from Minneapolis to Duluth, as has already been stated in the map, showed where existing track already exists for the Northern Lights Express. Ken Bueller is here today as the technical advisory chair of the Northern Lights Express, and Derek James is the senior manager for Amtrak that can tell a lot more about the train than I can. But I want to tell you that last year when we had our bonding tours across the state, in every town that we toured where there was good railroad service of some kind, or even just freight service, students at the local universities and colleges mentioned that they would use passenger rail a lot more than they are now if we had more passenger rail services. Community mayors and city councilors told the bonding committee that passenger rail service was not of the past. It is bringing people into the future because people want to do other things than look out the window while they're traveling if they are making repeated trips from one place to another. They would rather be doing their homework or doing reading or something that they could do on a passenger train instead of watching for traffic like they have to now if they are using Highway 35 or 94 or one of the other great highways that lead in and out of Minnesota. We heard people stressing the importance of having alternative travel arrangements for one-day trips, for two-day trips, for connecting with East and West coasts and North and South boundaries. And so it's important that we discuss and we try to meet the needs of options in transportation and not just be stuck with what we have. Mr. Bueller and Mr. James, will you make a better presentation of the details? And so we can go forth and answer any questions that the members of the committee have, and then get on to the next 1251 House file. But let us do 1109 as it deserves.
Mr. Bueller, please identify yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Mr. Chairman Lee, representatives, Representative Murphy and staff, my name is Ken Bueller. I live in Duluth, Minnesota. I am the chair of the Technical Advisory Committee for the Northern Lights Express project. And I can't think of doing a much better job than you already have, Representative Murphy. Thank you for making those opening comments. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. As appreciative as I am for the chance to speak to you, I miss that we are not all together at the state capitol. The opportunity to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and drive through bitter cold darkness over sometimes treacherous roads, snarled at times with traffic, be with you in person, always reminds me what a great idea it would be if I could take a train from Duluth Superior to Minneapolis and St. Paul. We are very close to that reality, Because of your past support, which I want to thank Representative Murphy and the others on this committee and in the House and Senate who have supported our efforts on behalf of the Northern Lights Express. NLX is a proposed passenger rail connection between Duluth, Superior, and Minneapolis on existing tracks at speeds up to 90 miles an hour with an average speed in the mid-60s. It would make a trip of about 2 hours and 25 minutes in journey time. I would like to elaborate on what Mr. James from Amtrak will be presenting by quoting a January 22nd of this year letter from Amtrak Chief Executive Officer William J. Flynn to members of Congress. He was commenting on Amtrak's 50th anniversary this year, and of course, laying out the agency's plans for the future, a future that looks pretty rosy right now. Under the heading of new routes, Mr. Flynn said this to Congress. He was talking here about new service between pair cities less than 500 miles apart, of which Duluth, Superior, and Minneapolis certainly qualify. I'll quote Mr. Flynn from his own letter. We ask Congress to authorize and fund Amtrak's expansion in such corridors by allowing us to cover most of the initial capital and operating costs of new or expanded routes prior to requiring state partner cost sharing under Section 209 of the Passenger Rail Investment and Improvement Act. Now, this is all tentative, and I gotta say it's way in the early stages, but it does represent a whole new direction of thinking for Amtrak, one where they are taking the lead and not putting the burden of expanding new services on the states. That way they get to choose the routes that they feel will be the most successful. This is Amtrak's blueprint for the future that we know will be presented to a very passenger-friendly rail administration and Congress. And yes, NLX is in that plan. Because the Northern Lights Express project stands at the head of the class for expanding new corridors under this scenario, because we already have a finding of no significant impact. NLX has completed all the necessary federal studies, environmental reviews, and has been approved for federal investment under a myriad of existing funding programs, as Mr. Crom expressed. That's due in part to the fact that we've been at this for as long as it has taken to reach this milestone, and because of past support from the state of Minnesota and the Federal Railroad Administration, not to mention the members of the Joint Powers Alliance. Just this past weekend, I was reminded again by an article in the Star Tribune that the #1 contributor to greenhouse gases is transportation, the moving of both freight and people. Trains have the lowest carbon footprint of any form of transportation for freight or people other than bulk freighters like 1,000-foot ore boats on the Great Lakes or ocean-going cruise ships. In the case of passengers traveling between Minneapolis and Duluth Superior, well, let's be honest, we're not going to get a cruise line on that corridor anytime soon, or probably ever. This is a freight rail project because of certain funding that has already been taking place, like the improvements in the last bonding bill for the Grassy Point Draw, which is a choke point here at the head of the lakes. That'll also pay dividends, though, for another train, a train that will change everything, the Northern Lights Express. We urge your approval, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bueller. Next up, we have Derek James. Please identify yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Derek James, Director of Government Affairs, Senior Manager of Government Affairs for Amtrak out of our Chicago office. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Murphy and members of the committee for allowing me to speak with you today. Amtrak is a private, private corporation created by Congress in 1970 to operate the nation's passenger rail system. After decades of decline, because of competition from the highway and aviation networks, the American public sought from Congress a solution to the inability of the private sector railroads to sustain a profitable passenger rail system. That's why Amtrak was created. After being signed into law by President Nixon, we assumed control of the nation's passenger train system that was previously operated by 23 separate railroad companies. As Mr. Bueller indicated, Amtrak, we're in our 50th year of existence since that creation, and we couldn't be in a better position to capitalize on the last decade of investment that Congress has made with several states to advance mobility and the economic life of the 500 communities which we serve today. Since 2008, Congress and the last two administrations have invested $25 billion in rebuilding the Amtrak network for an America that frankly has shown a desire to have rail available to it, especially on corridors of 100 to 400 miles, like NLX and like TCMC. These are the corridors where we have seen the most robust ridership growth. In the last year prior to the pandemic, Amtrak saw its highest ridership in history. In 2019, Americans took more than 32 million trips on our intercity trains. The travelers have responded to the investments we've been making in upgraded stations, faster trains, more frequent daily departures. And those partnerships, those investments are possible because of investments made by the federal government, us, and state governments that we've done so in partnership with. New technology has allowed customers multiple channels to get train schedules, purchase tickets. Gone are the days where conductors are punching paper tickets. Customers can complete all their transactions using their handheld devices, including upgrades on board the train. Customers today can even see how full the train is, which is so important in these times of social distancing. The investments that Amtrak's been making in the railroad network is being felt locally, we think, in Minnesota. Amtrak today serves 8 Minnesota communities where we're making $10 million in upgrades to stations. We're rehabilitating restrooms and lighting, new parking, new passenger boarding platforms. Those sorts of improvements are coming to Winona, Red Wing, Staples, and Moorhead Fargo. Our investments that we are making also support the Minnesota business community. Your industrial and marketing services sectors help keep Amtrak trains rolling. In 2019, Amtrak spent $71 million purchasing goods and services from Minnesota firms, including $33 million that went to disadvantaged business enterprises in the state of Minnesota. But Amtrak wants to invest more in your state, especially to fulfill our mission of improving mobility for travelers between our major metropolitan areas and to the nation's small cities and rural communities. We will do that by adding more train service and more daily departures so students traveling to and from colleges, families, some without personal vehicles, can make important trips, and business people trying to get to a meeting. They'll now have the option, if we're able to invest with you in more service, have safe and convenient passenger train service. We're seeking a partnership with the state of Minnesota to help realize investments in the state's transportation infrastructure that we think will pay dividends for you for years with increased travel convenience for your families, your businesses, your students. Amtrak will soon be making public our vision for a network of frequent rail corridors connecting the majority of Americans with high quality, frequent train service. We will seek to further the partnership we've already had with Congress. They've indicated a willingness to work with us by their past investments. We'll ask for that support with the next surface transportation reauthorization. That partnership, though, needs the states to play a role locally. We want to work with you to stand up 2 new passenger rail routes, as you've seen already. Twin Cities to the Twin Ports of Duluth and Superior, the Northern Lights Express, and the Twin Cities with Red Wing, Winona, La Crosse, Milwaukee, and Chicago, the TCMC route. Amtrak supports HF 1109 and HF 1251, and Governor Walz has just announced local jobs and projects plan that includes $10 million as part of a multi-state and federal investment. That includes $10 million to bring the TCMC corridor online and connect the Twin Cities with the Midwestern Amtrak hubs at Milwaukee and Chicago. The TCM project, as you've heard, is $53 million and will pay for track upgrades along the railroad. Wisconsin has pledged $6.7 million. The Federal Rail Administration, $31.8 million. And Amtrak, we're going to kick in our $5 million as well. We just need $10 million from the state of Minnesota to finalize the design and literally to start laying tracks. Because as you saw, $40 million of that work is in the state of Minnesota. We could have trains up and running by 2024, doubling the number of daily departures at stations along the route. States like Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, and Missouri understand that transportation and economic advantages that come from having frequent rail service to their communities and are using federal grants to purchase new trains and locomotives, upgrade track, signal, and safety systems, and add new routes and train frequencies. Right now, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Amtrak and the federal government are going to be investing $300 million in upgrades to the very popular Milwaukee to Chicago Hiawatha service to take it from 14 trains a day to 20. Strong business and community support has led to the political support that supports new track, trains, and station investments to allow this expansion. Firms like SC Johnson and Miller Coors have made locational decisions based on the presence of the Hiawatha trains. It's the busiest Amtrak route in the Midwest, with almost 900,000 Amtrak passengers pre-pandemic. The TCMC expansion is really allowing an extension of that successful service up into the state of Minnesota and beginning to build out that corridor, which has been envisioned by Midwestern states and the federal government. Amtrak sees TCMC and the Northern Lights Express as critical components of the Midwestern network, and will continue to try and advance it in partnership with the federal government and you. I welcome your questions and hopefully look forward to hosting you aboard an Amtrak train one day. I accept your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James. Members, do we have any questions for Representative Murphy or her testifiers? Seeing none, Representative Murphy, do you have any closing statement?
Mr. Chair, the invitation has been extended to us. We have to answer it. $10 million for investment of $40 million is a lot. We can make this work. Thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you, Vice Chair Murphy. House File 1109 is laid over.